Welcome back to the world today. In the Middle East now, as several people have been killed after Israeli strikes hit Gaza's Nusrat camp. Casualties could be seen rushed to hospital, and people mourned the loss of their loved ones as they wept over their dead bodies on the streets. According to the Palestinian Ministry of Health, the Israeli military strikes killed at least 17 Palestinians across the Gaza Strip on Thursday, as forces step up bombardments on central areas and push tanks deeper into the north and south of the enclave. The escalation came a day after Israel and Iranian-backed Hezbollah started to observe a ceasefire in Lebanon, ending more than a year of hostilities and rising hopes among Palestinians in Gaza for a similar deal with Hamas, which rules the enclave. In Nusrat, one of Gaza's 8 historic refugee camps, Israeli planes carried out several airstrikes, destroying multi-story buildings and hitting roads outside mosques. A health official said at least 7 people were killed in those particular strikes. Qatari Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdel Rahman Al Thani have met with Egypt's Foreign Minister Badr Abdelati during a visit to Egypt. Speaking after the meeting, Mr. Abdelati told a joint press conference that they discussed the situation in the region, including the Israeli aggression against the Gaza Strip and the ongoing violations in the West Bank. According to 2 Egyptian security sources, an Egyptian security delegation is to travel to Israel on Thursday in an effort to reach a Gaza ceasefire deal. Egypt's Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli says Egypt and Qatar will cooperate on a very important real estate investment project on Egypt's north coast, according to a cabinet statement on Wednesday. The statement came during Mr. Al Thani's visit to Egypt, where he's also met Egypt's president, as reported earlier. In the meantime, it's indeed the second day of a ceasefire in Lebanon. Traffic streamed into Beirut's southern suburbs as some people returned to the area, cars loaded with personal belongings, luggage, and mattresses. A ceasefire between Israel and Lebanese armed group Hezbollah took effect on Wednesday under a deal brokered by the United States and France, allowing people in both countries to start returning to homes in border areas shattered by 14 months of fighting. Israeli tank fire hit 3 towns along Lebanon's southeast border with Israel on Thursday. Lebanese security sources and state media said a day after the ceasefire, barring offensive military operations came into force. Hezbollah and Israel have been fighting for over a year in parallel with the Gaza war. Well, the federal government in Canada and premiers of the 10 provinces have agreed to work in a united... I beg your pardon. The federal government in Canada and premiers of the 10 provinces have agreed to work in a united and coordinated way against threats by U.S. President-elect Donald Trump to impose tariffs on Canadian imports. Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland says the government has agreed to be smart, strong, and united in meeting this challenge. This was after a virtual meeting with the premiers called by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. The Minister of Public Safety, Dominic LeBlanc, said that the same press conference measures to improve border security would increase and will become more public in the coming weeks. President-elect Donald Trump earlier this week said he would impose a 25% tariff on imports from Canada and Mexico until they clamped down on drugs, particularly fentanyl, and migrants crossing the border.
It was a really good, really important meeting. We talked about the Canada-U.S. relationship, and our central agreement on which everyone was agreed really from the outset was that this is a time when we need to play for Team Canada. We need to work in a united and coordinated way. We agreed that we need to be smart, strong and united in meeting this challenge. We spoke principally about the border and the Canada-US trade relationship. We agreed that illegal drugs, especially opioids, are a scourge for both of our countries, and that we need to continue to work hard to ensure our border is safe and secure, and to really crack down on illegal drugs.
Well, China also continues its response to the proposed U.S. tariffs on Chinese goods. The Chinese Commerce Ministry says imposing tariffs arbitrarily on trade partners cannot solve the problems within the United States itself. He Yadong, a spokesperson for the Chinese Commerce Ministry, reiterated that China's stance has been consistent and urged the U.S. to abide by World Trade Organization rules. U.S. President-elect Donald Trump, who takes office on January 20, 2025, said on Monday that he would impose a 10% tariff on Chinese imports so that Beijing does more to stem the flow of Chinese-made chemicals powering an opioid epidemic in the United States. During Mr. Trump's first term, corporate executives and foreign investors scoured Chinese state media for signals to which U.S. firms might be in favor and which might be penalized as trade tensions increased. Elsewhere now, police are investigating bomb threats targeted at several of Donald Trump's cabinet nominees and picks for his White House team. The FBI says it's aware of numerous bomb threats as well as swatting incidents in which hoax calls are made to attract a police response to the target's home. At least 9 of the president-elect's picks, including those chosen to lead the Departments of Defense, Housing, Agriculture and Labor, as well as his pick for U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, have received these threats. A spokeswoman for Mr. Trump's transition team, Caroline Leavitt, says law enforcement have acted quickly to ensure the nominees are safe. Well, our Washington correspondent, Maria Bird, joins us now for more. Great to see you, Maria. The FBI says it's aware of numerous bomb threats. How serious is the situation?
They're not seeing them as being very serious. They're wondering if this is just a way to be a deterrence. We're actually celebrating the Thanksgiving holiday today, so it's a time where people are trying to focus in on their families. So this is a deterrent, obviously, from those activities and festivities. So they don't see any immediate threat to any of those who have been chosen by the President-elect Trump for his cabinet membership. So I think we are still watching and waiting, but there's no immediate threat to any of the homes or families of those individuals.
How exactly are security agents protecting these people, even if there's no serious in the threats, there's no smoke without fire, so to speak. So how are they trying to protect them just in case anything happens?
Well, the police will obviously be doing some surveillances around the homes. They'll probably be riding through the neighborhoods throughout the day over the next couple of days just to ensure that it is safe and secure. But again, as you mentioned, security for presidential nominees typically does not warrant the type of security that you would for a president-elect or someone who has already been chosen for that office. So this will really be about the police and the FBI just ensuring that those communities and areas are up to par.
Have we heard anything, comments from the president-elect himself on these latest developments?
Well, the president-elect himself is obviously allowing the FBI to move forward. His spokesperson will be speaking in regards to this for the transition team. And so we probably will hear throughout the holiday weekend. But I think that this is going to be something that will have limited visibility unless we see that there is immediate threat to these individuals.
And how are preparations for a smooth transition going?
Well, the transition committee has been very busy. They have been working very feverishly to get those nominees in place. And so we will probably begin to see most of the cabinet being fully baked before the end of the calendar year.
And are we to expect more nominations, or the Trump administration is all set and ready to go?
we'll see a few more nominations over the next couple of weeks, but for the most part, he has done many of his major nominees and picks.
Right. Maria, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Let's move on. At least 11 people have been injured in a massive pileup involving 53 cars on a stretch of highway in South Korea's eastern city of Wonju amid heavy snow. Authorities say the multi-vehicle accident occurred at around 5:50 p.m. local time, and 3 people were sent to hospital with minor injuries. In videos and photographs provided by the Gangwon State Fire Headquarters, crashed cars and tow trucks are seen at the scene of the pileup on the highway. The fire department also released photographs of a snow-covered cowshed in Hongseong, which collapsed due to the heavy snow that fell overnight. The Interior Ministry has upgraded its disaster response, saying up to 5 centimeters an hour of snow was forecast through Thursday morning, warning that the wet snow had a high concentration of moisture, adding to the risk of damage to facilities and also to property. Well, a hiker who was lost in the backwoods of British Columbia for more than 5 weeks has been found alive, thankfully. Sam Benestick was reported missing on the 19th of October after he failed to return from a 10-day fishing and hiking trip in Redfern Kiley Park in the northern Rocky Mountains. The authorities had called off search and rescue efforts for the avid hiker in late October. Temperatures in the region had at times dropped to around -20 Celsius. Mr. Bannistick was found on Tuesday by 2 people headed to the Redfern Lake Trail for work who recognized him as the missing hiker as he walked towards them. The 20-year-old told police that he stayed in his car for a couple of days and then walked to a creek where he camped for 10 to 15 days. At the time he went missing, he was equipped with a tarp, a backpack, and some camping supplies. He then moved down the valley and built a camp and shelter in a dried-out creek bed. Winter conditions ramped up with some snowfalls. Eventually, Mr. Bounstick made his way to the area where he flagged down his rescuers. Well, British lawmakers are to decide on Friday whether to support assisted dying in an emotional vote which had split Parliament and the country. The lawmakers will be debating proposals to allow mentally competent terminally ill adults in England and Wales with 6 months or less left to live to the right to choose to end their lives with medical help, of course. The first attempt to change the law in a decade has caused a national debate in Britain, with former prime ministers, faith leaders, medics, judges and ministers in Prime Minister Keir Starmer's government weighing in on the subject. If Parliament backs the bill and sees it through the full legislative process, Britain will follow other countries such as Australia, Canada, and some US states in launching what will be one of its biggest social reforms in a generation. Polls show that a majority of Britons back assisted dying as it evokes emotional responses from Londoners on the streets.
I believe personally that assisted dying is like of the person's own belief. I think if they're in a place where their quality of life is not acceptable for them to carry on living, then I think they should be able to make that decision. I do believe it's a tough one to make, especially if you've got family or friends and people that care and love about you. But I think if you're in a place where you're really struggling, then I personally don't see an issue with it.
I believe that we should let nature take its course. You know, I think nobody should have the right to terminate somebody's life. Let the Lord decide that. That's what I believe. Because the hospital I work in, I see people dying every day. You know, and some family, it's very hard for them to make a decision. But I believe in leaving the patient there before they leave the land of the living and let nature take its course.
I personally think that people that are suffering should choose when they want to die, because if they're going to lay there and suffer in pain, there's just no point of life.
I think people should have a choice. If it's managed correctly, I think it's a good thing. You wouldn't let an animal suffer. People put animals down if they're in... And you see some people suffering terribly. No, I wouldn't want that for somebody that I loved.
I am in favour of assisted dying as long as the backup is there to make sure that it is that person's wish. No coercion at all.
For those people who palliative care and medication isn't working and are dying in pain, they have three very awful options. Option one is to flee abroad, to go to a foreign country for an assisted death on their own terms. The second option is to take matters into their own hands, is to refuse food, treatment, water, or even die by suicide in often quite dramatic ways. Or their third option is to suffer and die in pain at the very end of their lives and have their families witness that. We see people in these tragic situations. We speak to people who have experienced that. I spoke to someone recently who every single day for the last 2 weeks of their life, their partner begged them to kill them. And it's just a horrible, traumatic end of a life. And that's why legislation is needed, because essentially assisted dying is already happening. It's just happening tragically. And we need a proper safeguarded route and a choice and an option for these people.
The law as it stands is not fit for purpose. You can have brilliant palliative care, and that's really, really important that is part of this conversation. We've got people working in hospices and settings up and down the country helping people at the end of life. But for some people, palliative care is not going to ease their pain and suffering, and they are asking for the choice to have an assisted death, and I think they should be given that choice. We need a robust bill, as far as I'm concerned. So this bill will be about terminally ill people, and it will be about terminally ill people who do not have long left to live. I understand that people would want a bill that goes further, but I am nervous about having wide criteria without really stringent parameters, because I think that's when people really will worry about where this direction of travel is. So as far as I'm concerned, the bill needs to be tight, it needs to be robust, and it needs to be just for people with terminal illness.
Elsewhere in Europe, Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu and his wife Oluremi Tinubu have been welcomed to France by France's President Emmanuel Macron and French First Lady Brigitte Macron. President Tinubu today began a 2-day visit to France, with Nigeria and France seeking increased economic cooperation, with Paris looking to boost ties in English-speaking Africa following a series of setbacks with former allies on the continent. French President Macron greeted his counterpart at the historic memorial complex with the first official state visit by a Nigerian leader in more than 2 decades. President Macron has sought a renewal between Paris and Africa since his 2017 election, and after military coups and changing attitudes lessened France's influence on the continent. President Tinubu, while acknowledging that Nigeria and France have a rich history of collaboration across various sectors, adds that he's eager to engage in bilateral discussions and explore new avenues for partnership that can benefit both nations. And Nigerian residents traveling to the UK can now book appointments to submit their visa applications through VFS Global's new state-of-the-art visa application centers located in Abuja, Ikeja, Lagos, and Victoria Island, both in Lagos, which commenced operations since November 19th. The visa application center in Ikeja is to date the largest in Africa. British Deputy High Commissioner Johnny Baxter, Director of Visa Status and Information Services at UK Visas and Immigration, Mr. Mark Owen, and Head VFS Global Sub-Saharan Africa, Mr. Alok Singhal, were present at the event. The UK is a popular destination for travelers across Africa, with Nigeria being among the highest nationalities by volume for UK visit visas, accounting for 5% of the global total. In the African region, VFS Global will provide visa application centers for the UK in 31 countries. And in Namibia, votes are being counted, but polls were marred by logistical challenges, with voting continuing for an unscheduled second day in some areas. The voting, which started at 7 a.m. local time, was supposed to end at 9 p.m., but some polling stations still had a large number of voters waiting within their compounds to cast their ballot. There were also reports of ballot shortages at some polling stations. Namibians are choosing a new president and also choosing new members of parliament. Interim President Nangolo Mbumba, who took over the reins of government after Genyob died, is not contesting for this election. We're in South Africa now, where one of the populous cities in Johannesburg is facing challenges in maintaining a consistent electricity supply due to widespread vandalism, particularly targeting transformers and substations. Officials say each act of vandalism leads to costly repairs and significant delays in restoring services. These concerns were raised during the investment conference in the area, which was held under the theme Economic Partnerships, Unlocking Opportunities, Building a Sustainable Future, as our South Africa correspondent Innocent Samosa reports.
The city of Ekurhuleni in Johannesburg has been marred by challenges including vandalism of critical infrastructure such as power grid, water systems and telecommunications network. Now, this has posed a major issue in the city, not forgetting aging and dilapidated infrastructure, posing a major barrier to growth. Leaders and key stakeholders gathered here in Johannesburg for Ekurhuleni Investment Conference. The executive mayor of the city of Ekurhuleni, Nkosi Ndipile Agaza, says the conference seeks to foster economic growth and unlock investment opportunities within the region.
Also, the township economies, our guys from the townships are also here. They're saying, let's have a slot, let's have a conversation about ourselves. How do we drive the economy of our townships?
But while optimism surrounds the conference, there are pressing concerns from state-owned utility Eskom regarding the state of its infrastructure.
We are always fighting that war. We're always trying to there's no other mechanism. If there's a mechanism that we can actually stop it, we're willing to listen to that. But at this point, we're going to continuously try and by all means try to curb the scourge of the theft that we are seeing. So yes, one may see it as losing the battle, but we are not ready to give up the war.
The Department of Trade and Industry has raised concerns about how dilapidated infrastructure is limiting the growth of SMEs in the area.
So government could have support, but if SMEs or the enterprises don't come forward, it would remain futile. So it's important that we work together. So the enterprises should come forward and try and access what government has to offer. So that way it would help all involved.
Delegate says that while challenges remain, the commitment to building a sustainable future for the city is stronger than ever. From Johannesburg, South Africa, Innocent Samos, Channels Television News.
Innovative Kenyan farmers have emerged to embrace beekeeping as a sustainable method to safeguard their land from the elephants of Tsavo West National Park in Taveta County. For them, it's a win-win situation of money from the bees, honey, and the preservation of their crops. Take a listen.
A herd of elephants meandering through the green fields, while nearby, farmers inspect the strategically placed beehives that encircle their crops. Harrison Mwambaga says that the farmers in the area have spent years struggling with elephants raiding their fields, ruining crops and affecting harvests. So they came up with a strategy.
In the beehive fence, the hives have wires that connect to the next. When an elephant shakes the wire, the defensive bees come out and the elephants flee.
According to him, this strategy not only deters elephants who naturally avoid bees, but also promotes biodiversity and enhances crop yields through pollination. Another farmer, William Kinoi, describes the hives as a game changer in coexisting with elephants and is optimistic the farms will be safe. According to the Save the Elephants organization, STE, an average of 76% of elephants were deterred from entering the farms per year from 2014 to 2020 using this method. However, increased habitat disturbance or more frequent droughts could reduce the effectiveness of beehive fences as a natural elephant deterrent in the future, given that water is a necessity for keeping bees. Dozens of farmers have taken to this method and installed the beehive fences on their farmlands around the Tsavo West National Park. The Beehive Fences project was launched in 2007 by STE in cooperation with the Wildlife Research and Training Institute, Kenya Wildlife Service, and the University of Oxford.
With roast turkey and all the trimmings, U.S. troops stationed in South Korea celebrate their Thanksgiving holiday at their base on Thursday. Prime rib chicken as well as macaroni and cheese were prepared for hundreds of soldiers at Camp Casey in Dong-Duchong, one of the several U.S. Army bases near the demilitarized zone. Roughly 28,500 U.S. troops are stationed in South Korea as a legacy of the 1950 to 1953 Korean War. U.S. Colonel Brendan Tulin says the celebration is a mix of both the U.S. traditional Thanksgiving food and food of the host country, South Korea.
And today we're having our Thanksgiving meal. And so we have prepared U.S. traditional food, Thanksgiving meal. So turkey, prime rib, chicken, and the fixings like macaroni and cheese and stuffing. But because we're also stationed in the Republic of Korea, we also have some Korean traditional foods, kimchi, radish kimchi, those types of things. And so it's really interesting to eat both the U.S. traditional Thanksgiving food and then the food of our host country.
I liked the turkey today. I definitely miss my grandma's, but this is still pretty good turkey, so I'll take it.
Kids, I really, really miss you. You mean the world to me. And I really, really miss my friends. And so they're all celebrating. We were able to make some phone calls this morning, but I love and miss you.
And for Thanksgiving in the U.S., Monkey D. Luffy, Gold Bear, and other balloons have come to life in the Manhattan area of the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade on Thursday. Hundreds of spectators watched as workers blew helium into 17 cat balloons, 22 floats, and 15 heritage and novelty balloons. The parade will also feature over 700 clowns, 11 marching bands, and 10 performance groups to begin at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, this is very...
Just all like joy and fun and lighthearted and about spirit and being together with family.
A lot of colors and they're so big, and I just want to see Spider-Man and Kermit the Frog.
I mean, it's like cool how they can make like a character like blown up so big and like detailed and stuff.
Yeah, it's like a fun experience to like watch with your family and friends.
I like the Dora.
I like the Dora.
Or the Minion.
Right.
I like the detail of the Minion with like the banana guy.
I like the Dora because I used to watch the show.
I think you get to tap into being a child. I think we're more excited than the children. We were just walking, and like the parents are like telling the kids like get excited, and here it is all the adults. So I think it helps you to stay tapped into your youth. Bluey, well, we're preschool. We work for preschool, so that's the hot guy. Bluey's the hot guy, but I was excited to see Dora.
Yeah.
So we took a lot of pictures for Bluey because of our preschoolers.
All the balloons in the Macy's parade are unique. They all have different scale and size. They have different chambers. One of the things that people don't know about is that to make a giant balloon of this scale, it's actually several balloons pulled together. So you make, the hand might be one balloon, the nose might be another balloon, and those are all then heat sealed together to make the larger balloon. So depending on how many chambers, that's what we call them, the balloon has, they will take a little longer to inflate because you have to get them not only inflated but also in the right position. If you inflate the head and you also need to inflate the hat and the hat hasn't been inflated, then you can't get to the hat if the head is already up high.
Wow, such fun that people are having there. Well, that's it on The World Today. Thank you so much for watching. Coming up on the hour for our viewers on a DSTV is a documentary on the China-Nigeria relations. You can catch sports at 6 p.m. on our other live streaming platforms and on our terrestrial channel for our viewers in Lagos. Thank you for watching. I'm Joke Rogers.